When I was making my decision, the conversation that I had with my family is, what gives me the best opportunity to win next year? And when I looked at the teams, it came down to some very good teams. But I thought that, just one thing I admired about the Boston Celtics team was the coaching, and also the way the players played together and was very selfless on the court. They compete at a very high level on both ends of the floor. They don't really care who gets the, the credit for scoring or rebounding or whatever it may be. They just kind of just play together and play to win. And I thought those guys are at a position in their career where I'm kind of at that same position. Obviously, those guys, they have a ring already, but they want another one. I don't have a ring, and I want one. So I felt like their hunger and their focus was at a different level. There was some other good teams out there that I really looked at that I thought could compete for a championship, but these guys just came off an NBA Finals appearance, and obviously they won one, so they know what it takes to get there. And really thinking about it and talking to my family, thought this is the best fit for me.
Do you like the idea of the role now being kind of a fourth, fifth, maybe even sixth option rather than a second option? Or
I don't really see it like that. That's when I was making my decision. When I look at those guys play, they just share the ball, and it's not about options; it's about winning. And that's what it really boils down to. I'm not at a point in my career where I need to worry about that. I've been in an Olympic team. I've had Nike campaigns. I've had All-Star games, All NBAs, and I don't have an NBA Finals appearance, which is the most important thing to me, and that's what I really value the most right now. And sometimes as players, we kind of take for granted that it's going to keep happening. All those great years in Indiana, you couldn't have told me that, I would go 5 straight years of basically talking about going into camp, talking about just making the playoffs. It's a big difference when you talk about, in camp, when you come into camp talking about a championship run and talking about trying to make the first round.
Jermaine, when we last saw you, it was the first round of the playoffs.
Right.
You struggled against the Celtics.
Right.
Are you glad that you're on the same team as Perk now?
Perk is a tremendous player. I think he's a competitor. He reminds me a lot of my relationship with Udonis Haslem. When I went to Miami, we had a ton of great series, a ton of physical series. But I think more than anything, just Perk's personality and the rest of those guys' personality, that no quit demeanor, that aggressiveness, that passion that they play with, is something that I want to include my game with.
And what was the story with you in the first round of the playoffs? Sure.
Well, I got kicked as a New York game. Maybe 2 weeks before the season was over. My ankle was extremely swollen.
Which one?
The left ankle. And I just, to me, it's when you suit it up and you go out there, you're telling your team, you're telling your followers that you're ready to play, and whatever excuse that you have should be kept in the locker room. So I chose not to talk about it because it didn't really matter. I still felt like I can go out there and help the team, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do it. That's just one of those things.
Last year, you probably played more games than you had in like the previous 5 or 6.
Right.
What was behind that?
Well, first off, I got to compliment the Toronto Raptors training staff for getting the ball rolling, but really compliment the Miami Heat's training staff and doctors. They gave me the opportunity to really understand the knee, heal the knee. Tim Grove out in Chicago, helped work with those guys and really put it back together, and really gave me a format on what I need to do to keep the knee healthy and keep the body healthy. And I think that's one thing that that really helped me a lot, and it's the same format I'm using this summer.
how much do you look forward to going back and competing against Miami, especially the way they're situated right now?
I don't really look at it as an individual matchup. Obviously, they have a great tandem down there, but I feel like this team has the best team. I feel like the Celtics has the best team. I had a great time down in Miami. I had an opportunity to re-sign back with them, but I just thought that this is where I'm meant to be.
How does it feel to be leaving Miami right when there's all this exciting building down there?
Again, I knew what they were trying to do, and I could have re-signed back with those guys, but it was just, it comes down to fit. It comes down to personalities and the style of play, and Boston has all of that for me, and that's really what it was. It was the most important choice that I made in my career. It's the first time I actually had the opportunity to even be a free agent. You know, in my 14 years, so it was very difficult. But I just felt like over the next 2 years, I needed to be somewhere where the focus is strictly about winning now. You know, not worrying about chemistry, not worrying about anything. It's about just, you know, coming in and helping the team win and doing my part of being involved in something great.
Did it eventually come down to being a no-brainer for you when you looked at all the options, including staying with Miami as far as joining this organization?
Yeah, you know, again, I had some great conversations with Doc and Danny and Paul and Rondo. And Rondo actually was probably the guy that sold it the most. And I had great conversations with all 4 guys, but he really helped me understand where my fit would be. And again, I'm not concerned about shots. I'm not concerned about, you know, minutes. I'm not concerned about anything. I'm concerned about winning. I think at the end of the day, you can you know, build up individual goals, but the validation is whether you want or not.
What was Rondo say?
He just told me, you know, how I would fit. You know, what the team, you know, what they expected on a day-to-day basis, you know, for their team, and their focus. And all I heard was championship run, and that's all that matters right now. When you hear championship run, you know, it's kind of like Christmas all over again. You know, and again, the last 4 or 5 years, that's been basically talking about let's make the playoffs, and you know, that's very difficult, especially when, you know, I'm coming into the stretch run of my career, which is, you know, it's the end of my career.